Yo, what's up guys? This is Theo here and welcome to part 13 in Learn HTML and CSS on CodeCademy. This is layout, so let's go ahead and get started. So it says the box model is the first step into understanding how the browser lays out HTML elements. So in this unit, you'll learn how to position HTML elements in order to gain more control of a web page's layout. Let's begin. Okay, cool. So, like I mentioned in part 13, you have a position property, and say you're going for a very specific layout, and you really can't achieve it with your grid system. Okay, so there are times when you do need to use this position property, and it can take one of the four values. Static just means it's the default, so you're really not applying anything. Relative means it's relative to the container it's inside. We call that the parent container. Absolute means it's actually taken out of the flow of the DOM, so other elements do not think that it really exists, and usually that's if you want it in a very specific place. And fixed is pretty similar to absolute, except for other elements do respect that it is existent on that HTML page. So in style.css, set the position in .question to static. Okay, so let's go down and say position. We're going to say static, and it does nothing. Okay, that's what it said. It's the default, so let's move on. So next up, guys, one way to modify the default position of an element is by setting its position property to relative. Okay, and then it has all these properties. Top moves it down, bottom moves it up, left moves it right, and right moves it left. So it's sort of counterintuitive to what you might think if this is your first time. But again, you can always use negative and sort of offset that. So one, in style.css, set the position in .question to relative. Okay, so let's change this to relative, and that's not going to do anything right yet. But now let's add 240 pixels on the top. Okay, so let's go back down to question, and we'll say top, and we want to add 240 pixels. Okay, and that will bring it down. Cool. Awesome. Next up, guys, set the position inside of the header selector to absolute. Okay, so we want to say absolute. Let's go ahead and run that code so you can sort of see it disappeared. And now, because this is absolute, what we can do is we're going to add a top and left offset properties and set them to 0. So we'll say top 0 and left 0. So this will be at the top left now. Cool. Awesome. Next up, guys, we have position fixed. So the div will remain fixed to its position no matter where the user scrolls. So that's the main difference, right? So if you wanted to create that sort of parallax effect. In style.css, change the position inside of the header selector to fixed. Okay, so let's try this out. So now we can see that scrolling effect that people like in the websites. So we can sort of see our header is fixed. It's going with us no matter where we navigate on the page. Cool. Next up, we have z-index. Basically, in layman's terms, what this is an element's priority, like a priority queue of what gets displayed in front of what element. So if I have a z-index on my container of 20, but I have an element inside of there, with 100, the 100 was going to take precedence. Say I have like 2 background colors or something like that. Okay, so in style.css, set the z-index of header to 1,000. So let's try this. Okay, so we can sort of see what happened. Did you set z-index to 1,000? I did. Let me go back and change this. Z-index 1,000. Let me run this one more time. Okay, cool. Awesome. Next one, we're going to look at float. I personally don't use this very much because I use Flexbox, but basically what float does, it allows us to offset our elements to the left and to the right. And this is helpful, say you do want that sort of layout where one element is aligned to the left, the other one's to the right, and say it's an image or something, right? And you want them always like that, even if you resize the page. Okay, so set the float property of the div.answer element to the left. Okay, so cool. Let's go find answer, and we'll say float left, and this should just align it to the left. Awesome. So we can sort of see what happened. They all moved to the left. Then we have the clear property. Be honest, I really don't use this very much either. So the clear property specifies how elements should behave when they bump into each other. So basically, if you have an element after a float, sometimes that can be affected. It's kind of hard to think of a good example, to be honest. But if you were to set clear to none, that basically means that sometimes you'll see a class called clearFix, and basically all that's doing is it has a style in whatever style sheet it's linked to, and it's just setting clear to none in there. And that just means that that element isn't going to be affected by an adjacent element that has a float. But here are the properties: left, right, both. So depending on what side the float is or where the element is in relation to that. Okay, cool. So next up, guys, take a look at the answers div on the web page. They've been floated to the left, but the questions divs are touching the answers divs on the right. In the question selector, okay, so let's go find that question selector. Set the clear property to the left. Okay, so now let's see what happens, guys. Okay, so basically what happened was they moved under, right, because they are no longer being affected by that float. On second thought, this layout is not looking so good. Remove the float property from answer and the clear property from question. Okay, so let's go ahead and remove those. Float left, and let's go ahead and move. Looks like, okay, cool. That's it for that, guys. And so let's sort of recap what we learned. We learned about the position property. We learned about relative. I'd say your best bet for the most part is to go with relative over absolute unless you're really certain. You know, anytime you're creating a responsive layout or a responsive web page or just website in general, you know, I would err on the side of caution when using absolute. Again, if it's one size, you know, maybe rolling out some advertisements or just sort of a static landing page that, you know, is just for a specific device, then go for it. Otherwise, err on the side of caution of that. Same with fixed. I wouldn't use these very much. When in doubt, really try and use relative. Then you have your z-index, which is, you know, the priority queue we talked about. You have your floats and clear to sort of get rid of that float. So that's it, guys, for that video. Up next, we'll learn how to add images to make our web page visually appealing. So that is it for part 14. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'm trying out my new Yeti microphone. Please let me know if you think it makes a difference. I know I sort of was cheap and didn't buy one for a while, but you guys are definitely worth it, and I love making videos for you guys. So please let me know. Maybe I'm using it wrong or I have it on the wrong setting. I have it on the cardio, I forget what it's called, cardio setting. And then there's also the omnidirectional and bidirectional, but I think this is the one for like screencast. But anyways, guys, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure to like, comment, and please subscribe and support the channel. It means a lot. Thanks for watching and have a great day. Take care.